thanks for having me, Jaimie. I'm wicked excited to be here. Characters are super important to connect, when you're connecting with readers, when you're writing, and it's those characters that can really make a book forgettable or unforgettable. Same thing with movies, and we'll talk about that. I want to make sure that everyone had a chance to print out the handouts. If you didn't, you can do it afterward, but they pretty much, everything I do on a slide is on a handout. So like I'm one of those who, when I'm in a workshop, I'm furiously writing everything that's on the slides, and I didn't want you to have to do that. I want you to be able to think about what's on the slides and write how it applies to you. So I put most of the information that's on the slides on the handout. And that's this one right here, Creating Unforgettable Characters. There's also a list in the back of resources, both local to the Orlando area and professional organizations. This presentation was created for the Orange County Library System, so a lot of what you'll see there is just what's local to Orlando. Then I have the character bio and map worksheet, and that's two-sided. So before you start writing, if you completely develop your character, you're going to know how they're going to react to certain situations. So I find this super helpful before I even start writing a story. And I don't always fill everything in because I don't know about it until sometimes when my character is presented with different things. Like I make up a lot on the fly, but I'll always put it in here to reference. And then 15 essential questions for characters. Like you should be able to interview your character and answer all these questions. And there are lists upon lists upon lists of interview questions for characters. These are my 15 favorites. I think these hit everything that I want to know about my character personally. And then this is something I found online. It's the ultimate character checklist. I don't check all the boxes in all the categories, but I find it super helpful when I'm trying to think up stuff, like just basic facts and things about my character. Like if I need options and I'm stuck, or I need to remember something important. So the handouts are in the Facebook group, and if you want to follow along with them or without them, that's up to you, but they will be there for you when you want them. All right, so let's get started. All right, this is me. These are some of my books. I do a lot of things. I fit writing into all those things. It's strategic how I plan my week, and I do have a workshop on planning time. If you're interested, you can just email me, Kerry@kerryevelyn.com, and I could send you that presentation and the worksheets that go with it. But I know a lot of us have a ton of other things to do, and writing often is put on the back burner, and sometimes it's put so far back that it's weeks or even months between when we touch our manuscripts. And I don't write every day. It doesn't work for me, but I make the best use of my writing time. And from that, I wrote How to Binge Write Your Novel, and that is currently in production. And as soon as I have a release date, I will be posting that everywhere. So it's not like binge write, sit down and write the book in a day. It's being prepared when you get to your computer to just write once you get there, and to write in binges. So that's a lot of fun, and I've been working on it for a couple of years, and it's pretty awesome. So, all right, next. All right, so there are 3 types of writers: plotters, pantsers, and plansters. Okay, I know there's a good mix in this group right here. I know a plotter who pretty much plots like the entire book before she starts writing, and that's awesome. I know people who don't even know who their characters are when they sit down and start typing at the keyboard. And there are variations of both of those. I'm a planster. I like to figure out who my characters are and some of the main events before I start writing. Most of the time I'm not sure how I'm going to get from one point to the next in the story arc until the characters direct me. But no matter what type of writer you are, having a fully developed character is going to help direct your story, give the characters depth, make compelling connections to the readers, and make those characters live on after they've closed the book. All right, so take a minute to think about which fictional characters are unforgettable to you. And just take a couple seconds and think of your favorite ones. Like, throw out names if you want to.
My 2 go-tos are always Katniss Everdeen and Ender from Ender's Game, Ender Wiggins. They're like the same character, but they have the same fatal flaw. Those are my 2 go-tos always.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Hermione.
Tyler Durden for me. I'm from Fight Club. Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Did you say Hermione too, Megan?
Hermione Granger, yeah.
Yep. Anyone else? All right, I'll show you which ones. Okay, so we can skip this part. Quickly brainstorm. We did that. You thought of a couple, but think of this. What do you love about them? Okay, what makes them stand out from others? What's their motivation? And how do they grow and change from start to finish? Because they all have this stuff. That's why you remember them. There's something that connects you to them. They stand out for one reason or another, and it may be a personal connection. You may feel like you relate to that character. I can relate to Hermione because I was very studious, especially in 6th grade. I would bring all my books home every day for no reason. Even when I didn't have homework, I'll bring them home. I would read the stuff over again. Sometimes I would read past that. And people, like, I even got the nickname Bookmobile. And I was so insulted and hurt by that because it was middle school and that was bad. But now I'm like, that's a compliment, What's their motivation? Like, what makes them the way they are? Do they have a black moment in their history? Are they trying to prove themselves? Are they trying to save their sister from the reaping? Like, those are things that really makes them compelling. And then every character in every book, every main character, even some secondary characters are going to grow and change from start to finish. If they don't, you're not going to have a satisfying ending. So here are some of my favorite unforgettable characters. Would you agree that these characters are unforgettable?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, just think about why. Why. We love them all because they show their vulnerable side. They show their human side. They all have flaws that we can relate to. Look at Severus Snape right there. Look at his Patronus. And always, like, he never got over Lily Potter. And so that drives everything that man does. Everything. And we don't know that till the very end. Spoiler alert, sorry. But we don't know that till the very end. And so we hate him all the way through. But once we find out why he's doing all he's doing and how he's doing it, it all makes sense. And that is the kind of reaction you want to get from your readers when they're done reading your book or your series.
You can almost cry just hearing you say that because it's such a powerful moment and such a changing moment in the character's arc.
Yep. Oh, look at Harry.
I'm really going to have to watch these movies sooner or later, I know.
Yeah. Read the books if you have time because there's so much more to them. Look at Harry and Ginny. A lot of people think that Harry should have ended up with Hermione, but that doesn't work because what did Harry want more than anything? He wanted a family, right? The Weasleys were his family. They became his family. Ginny reminded him of his mother, who he never had a relationship with. So it fit. It fit for him to end up with Ginny, and it makes so much sense from a writing point of view. It rounds him out as a character. It would have been easy for him and Hermione to get together, but it wasn't right, in my opinion. All right, so you have 3 types of characters: primary, secondary, and tertiary. I love that word, tertiary. It sounds artsy, right? So your primary characters are your main characters, your MC, your capital H in a romance, lowercase h in a romance, hero, heroine. Secondary characters are of lesser importance. They're like the sidekicks, the friends, the best friends, the family, Dobby the house elf. These adorable little characters that help you learn more about the main characters and help bring them out and make them more compelling. Your tertiary characters will appear briefly for a specific limited purpose. And unless they're important or you're going to mention them again, I don't recommend giving them names. So you can say, like, the server at the restaurant. But if that server is going to show up again, then you can name her. So Shelby. So I made the mistake, a happy mistake, in my first book, Love on the Edge. I didn't know this rule, and I named the waitress at the diner, and her name is Shelby. And guess what? Once she had a name, she had a story, and she became the main character in my 3rd book. And she was only there to illustrate the difference in my character's pronunciation of pecan and pecan. That was it. I was trying to show the difference between, the contrast northern and southern upbringings and pronunciations, and show the contrast there. And she came in and she laughed hysterically. She's like, "Who says it that way?" And it became a running joke, and now it's mentioned in all my books because it's just so hilarious. The readers are like, oh, that's there again, you know. But Shelby became the main character in the third book, and I wasn't expecting that. Like, she was not even on my radar when you know what I mean? So if you name them, be prepared for readers to love them at some point and want more of them. All right. Primary characters. So what does the writer need to know about the character? Everything. Okay, so this character bio and worksheet, character bio and map worksheet, super important. You need to know everything about your character, but the reader only needs to know what's important to the story. The reader doesn't know the timeline, you know, from birth to death, or, you know, necessarily, you know, who they sat next to in English class in high school, but you might want to know that if it's relevant to your storytelling. And so know more about your character than you know about yourself. I mean, I know a lot about myself, but until someone says something about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of true. You want to know so much about those main characters, because if they're a hit, if you get readers who love your books, they're going to want to know more about them. They're going to know what they're doing this very moment, what they're eating for breakfast. You're going to be asked to interview your character, and if you don't have answers ready, if you cannot get into the headspace of that character, you're going to fumble with that. So know everything about your characters, the main ones. All right, bio character sketch. So here are the things you must know. All right, this is on your handout, so you don't have to write it down, I believe. Let me check. Yep, 3 types, characters, primary. All right, so your stats, height, weight, you know, build, that kind of stuff. Physical appearance, that kind of goes with stats. Education, where'd they go to elementary school, middle school, high school, college? How far did they go? Did they do any technical training? That kind of stuff. Do they have a work history? Their interests. What kind of personality do they have? Favorite things, family, all that stuff. All right, so here are the stats. You want to know their full name, date of birth, age at the time of the story, because as time goes on, so does their time. So when I wrote Christmas at Moonmist Manor, right here, it's 2.5 years after I wrote Love on the Edge, but it's the same characters. So these characters have been through a lot in 2.5 years. So you've got to account for that, and you know, the readers want updates. They want real-time updates if you've dated your story. Place of birth, current address, heritage, religion, maybe political views depending on what you're writing, if it applies to your story. But these are things that you have to know. You don't have to tell the reader all this stuff. Physical appearance, hair and eye color. Note this because there is nothing more frustrating than starting a book and reading about a character with blue eyes, and then they've got brown eyes, and then they've got green eyes. And I mean, the consistency isn't there, and the editors don't always catch that stuff. So you want to have that written out so that you can have so that you can check for that stuff yourself, because the readers will find it. And if they find mistakes like that, they're going to be like, oh my God, she didn't even check her work. And they'll mention it in a review, which you don't want. Face shape, skin, height, body type, any distinguishing features, voice and tone. If they have a celebrity or real life lookalike, that's very helpful to you because it helps you describe them. Work history and interests, education level, school attended. This is all pretty much speaks for itself. Past jobs, philanthropy, activities. It gets you to know the character better because, you know, Lainey Owens, who is in my first book, she does so many charities, and that tells the reader a lot about her personality. You know, she gives a lot of her time to different philanthropies, and that's her hobby. She loves to run charity events. And so it just gives the reader a further glimpse into the depth of her character. All right, personalities, qualities, quirks, and habits are huge. Oh my gosh, I didn't shut my Facebook off. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to do that without getting rid of my slide. Anyway, okay. Quirks and habits are big. You know, if someone's always twirling their hair when they're nervous, like that connects to a reader. Quirks are just, they add humor. They make your character relatable. Certain things may annoy them. Like Shelby hates being called nicknames. She thinks that's dumb. She's like, you know, she is like your cynical New Englander. She's hard. She's like, don't call me honeybee. You know, she has no time for that. She's like, you don't have the right to call me that. Like, I don't hug people. Nope. And meanwhile, you've got Damon, who's like, hey, give me a hug. He's Southern. He's from Savannah. He's super friendly. And she's like, what do I do with this guy? Go away. And it's really funny. Annoyances, mannerisms. Do they talk with their hands? What do they do when they get nervous or when they're on the spot? Are they a censor? Are they a thinker, artist, ruler? What's their main personality trait? I am part censor and part artist. So by sensing, it's not the Myers-Briggs sensor that I'm talking about here. It's the empathic. I can feel what you're feeling, and I can't always handle that. So I may need to distance myself from you when I'm feeling overwhelmed, because I'm feeling what you're feeling almost as strongly as you're feeling it, and that hurts me. Thinker, very meticulous, very, makes the lists, needs the logical behind everything. Your artist is your creative, your actor, your all that. And the ruler is someone who has to be in charge, because no one's going to do it as good as they are. They want control over everything. And a lot of us are a mix of all four of these things. But usually one or two will strike us, will overwhelm us more than the other. And that's the same for our characters. All right, we want to know favorite food, entertainment, favorite movies and songs, clothing style. Do they care about their appearance or do they not? Pastimes, do they like to watch baseball, hockey games? Do they have a Christmas tradition, that kind of thing? Mode of transportation, what do they drive? A lot of times what someone drives tells you a lot about their situation or their image. If they drive like a shiny Corvette, but they're living in a bad area of town, they're spending more money on their image and because they want to present themselves a certain way. If they are driving a junk bucket, then maybe they're having some financial issues, or they just don't care about cars. So mode of transportation, can be a clue into your character's personality. And then any other relevant favorites. Family, you need to create a family tree. We need to know their mother, father, siblings, pets, and any relevant extended family, because that is going to, the relationships they have with the people that are closest to them are going to tell the reader a lot about them. Now, you don't have to tell the reader this stuff, but it will work into their backstory. If their parents are divorced, how did that affect them? If their mom is their best friend, like the Gilmore Girls, how does Lorelai and Rory's relationship drive Rory's character? It's a big deal to her. And even the episodes that are Rory centric, we still see Lorelai's footprint in what she does and how she acts, and just because of how she was brought up. All right, going deep. This is the stuff here that's really going to make your characters super memorable. Their core values, their dreams, their fears. Greatest fear is good to know. When you start writing, if you know what their greatest fear is, you can make it happen, and then you can bring them back from it. Someone asked me once, what's the worst that can happen? Because I'm a worrier. What's the worst that can happen? Okay, now plan for it. Once you plan for the worst that can happen, it's not as scary. It's still awful, but it's not as scary. Any secrets they have, their regrets, worst nightmare, ultimate goal, motivation to get to the goal, obstacle to get to the goals, all this stuff helps you get into that deep point of view with the characters. All right, so the story itself, you want to make sure your character has a misbelief, and that misbelief comes from their wound, okay? So, and any relevant past that keeps pouring salt into that wound. All right, we want to keep bringing that up, because the character and the reader needs to be reminded for the first half of the book at least that there is something there that is causing them to act the way they are. And as they learn and grow, they're going to get past this. So there's a lesson to learn. I typically will write the background blurb of my character before I start writing. And that's just such and such was brought up in whatever town, parent situation, age, friendships, all this stuff, and just write a little blurb about it. And then when I finish the book, I'll tighten that up. And so if you go on my Facebook page, you'll see I get to know Shelby, get to know Damon. I made a little canvas square of it, and it tells you a lot about the character. And so if you have that before you start, then you've got a point of reference to work off of. And you can always change as you go, but the more you know in general about a character when you start, the better, the easier time you'll have writing that character's story. I do a timeline for my characters and for my series. When I start a new book, I start out with their birthday. I give them a birthday, and it's, whatever day, whatever year. The readers don't need to know this. You don't have to time and date your books. You can be as ambiguous as you want, but you as the author should know when their birthday is. And then along the way, the events that contribute to the misbelief. So maybe, they were abused as a child, okay? And they were told they were worthless. They were hit, they were smacked around, very young. They got out of that situation, but it stays with them. So anytime someone says a certain phrase, maybe it was a phrase, you're worthless, every time they hear that growing up, it resets them back to that Black moment where they just felt so down. And so that comes up again. We all have triggers that bring us back to a time that we don't want to remember, or that was so painful that it has affected us going forward. So you want to put that somewhere in the timeline. You don't have to put an exact date for that, but you could say like around age 7 or in 3rd grade or middle school, that kind of thing. All right, then you get to the inciting incident. Okay, I'm going to show you this. This is the major dramatic curve right here, this part right here. And that's your basic story arc. It's a little bit different because it's got a little dip where the crisis is. Your crisis point is the point of no return. So you start with a resting point. That's the character's normal. And then you move to the inciting incident, something that's going to shake up that normal. The inciting incident leads to the rising action. And then at some point, you get to a crisis point, okay? The character has to make a decision, all right? And this is the point of no return. This is the point of no going back, all right? And so that will lead to the climax. You have your falling action, then your resolution, change of heart, revelation, change of heart, then resolution, end of story. So that's what I follow. I think the only thing different from most models in here is that crisis point, because for me, that makes everything a little bit more clear. I know when the character gets to that crisis point, the climax isn't going to be too far off. And so that's helpful for me. Now, also, you'll notice this line underneath it. At each of those, that's called the 3rd rail by Story Genius. And so at each of those points along that story, the character is growing emotionally. That's their internal arc. Okay, so something changes or flips or reverts or something at each of those plot points. And I need to remember that when that happens, I need to make sure I do a lot of internal thought, or write some compelling things that are going to really connect the reader to the character at those points. So here's an example of a family tree, the noble and most ancient house of Black. Now this is important because this gives us insight into Sirius Black. This gives us insight into Draco Malfoy and how he was raised. The people who were burned off this family tree tells you a lot about the Black family and how prejudiced they were toward muggles and half-bloods and all that. It tells you a lot about the upbringing. So the fact that Regulus Black and Sirius Black were very different from the rest of the family, it puts a lot into their character. And you've got there's so much here in this family tree that lends even more understanding of this very prominent Harry Potter family. So here's the backstory. Imagine your character's backstory, okay? It's a sheet of glass. You hold it, you drop it, and all those pieces shatter, okay? So all those pieces are your backstory. You don't want to do a big dump at the beginning of the story telling us all about the character, because the reader will be like, all right, I know everything, like why do I keep reading? But you can put those shards of glass back where they're relevant. So at the end of some dialogue, or sneak it in, when the character's looking in the mirror, maybe you want to remind her of like a time when she was told she was ugly or not pretty or something, like that time in 7th grade when, someone came up to me in the bathroom and said, wow, I'm glad I don't have your face, that kind of thing. That's part of the backstory. A little bit at a time, and you're sneakily telling the reader about your character, but not in a way where they have to read it all in 3 paragraphs and get led out of the story to learn all this stuff, and then they're lost when they go back to where the story picks up. So you want to sprinkle that through. All right, so if you write it out beforehand, if you even just do bullet points, you can highlight it or check it off as you mention these things, and then you'll have a list of what you want to mention, and then you'll know where you put it also, so you're not repetitive. You want a backstory for your main characters, a brief backstory for secondary characters. Sometimes the place is a character. So the arena in the Hunger Games is a character. Hogwarts is a character. You want to know a lot about this world, so treat it as a character. Add the parts that are relevant as they're needed to advance the plot or shed light into the character, and save what you didn't use for revising, future use in a series, newsletter exclusives, etc. You're not gonna waste your time by doing too much, because all of that will be relevant at some point if you continue a series, especially. All right, before I go on to the 15 essential questions, does anyone have any questions so far?
You know I do.
Okay.
I just had some thoughts. Religion and political views. You mentioned that the reader doesn't need to know this, but that's something you feel like the author needs to know? Because I've never done that for my characters, and that I feel like sometimes it makes them not likable necessarily, especially if it's not along with my beliefs or the reader's beliefs. And I know you're saying the reader wouldn't know that, but is the idea that their motivations are maybe secretly driven by that?
Yes. So if you know, for example, I'm trying to think of a way to word this without sounding political, but if you know, for example, your character voted for a certain candidate, you know what their values are. Right. And maybe not all their values, but if they absolutely hated the other candidate so much that they voted for the other person, either out of spite or because they agreed with one thing, there's something that compelled them to vote for this one candidate in particular. And the religion, if your character was raised Mennonite or Wiccan, all these things play into their worldview. And so while the reader doesn't need to know any of that, it can tell you a lot about your character and how they're going to progress throughout the story. If you're writing fantasy, it may not be even relevant, but it's something that will deepen your understanding of where they're coming from.
Gotcha.
Or the decisions they make going forward.
I see. I think part of it for me is I have personally never really been driven by either one of those things until maybe I was in my mid 40s. Mm-hmm. So when I'm writing about younger people, I have a tendency not to think about that stuff, but maybe that's not the norm.
Well, go ahead, Megan.
I will say that I am a youth of like the 20s. I'm like in my 20s, and I will say that I am super political. So is my boyfriend. So is everyone that I know. We all have like very strong opinion in this day and age. Anyway, we all have very strong on where we are. So like, I mean, I could see maybe like during a while ago. I mean, granted, I was also younger, but a while ago I wouldn't have cared so much. But the landscape has gotten so rocky that I cannot help but to take a side, and I cannot help but to, especially the way my personality is. And obviously that will depend on your character. The way my personality is, I cannot help but to take a side and to let you know it in a non-professional setting if necessary.
Right, but so do we think that, I guess it depends on the character trait then, because if the character's like that, I think it's relevant, but if the character isn't motivated by politics or religion, it's just something I never thought of.
Right, but your character's also going to have values.
Politics. I'm sorry not to put words in your mouth, Kerry, but I don't think they need to be motivated by the politics, but more like what the party that they would vote for, their values and what they represent. So like if a political party highly like admires something like horrible, like, like I don't want to get into it, but like, if they're a Nazi, that like even if they're not political, they still like are okay, at least to a degree, with the things that are going on there. And if they're not, then that's a good like contrast that you should bring about, that you should like make clear that maybe they're not okay with Nazism, but like they see like, they're forced to be in it or whatever it is. Like that is, it doesn't have to be the politics itself. It's the values that the party represents.
That idea of right and wrong comes from somewhere, and wherever that idea of right and wrong was taught to them, then you've got some kind of political motivation. So I think around 17, 18, 19 years old, when people get the right to vote, they start to think about that. They may not care, they may vote for who their parents tell them, or they may just not vote at all. But think about going back to the 60s, Woodstock, all the sit-ins, the call it for Vietnam, all this stuff. That age right there, 17 to like 25, is very impressionable. They are looking to do good in the world because they naturally want to make a difference. And oftentimes they are misguided, and oftentimes they are ready to accept what people tell them, especially at universities. Depending on the university, it is heavily, heavily politically one way or another. And so to find that middle ground and to try to get the perspective of both sides is very, very hard, especially at that age, until the brain is fully developed, like around age 24, 25, where they can, where they're not as fired up. No offense to you, Megan. I'm not trying to say that, but once the brain is fully developed and you start getting married, having kids, all this stuff, your priorities change.
Sure.
And you're not so, a lot of people are not so gung-ho to put themselves at risk, like at a march or a sit-in, or do these things that can end up in violence because they're so driven by it.
Your morality factor when you have kids, I totally get that.
Completely.
I think one thing you both said, sort of without saying it, or maybe you did say it, is, and I think I get it. So really, it's where they develop and how their view of right and wrong is affected.
Yeah. And they will revert to it. In a time of crisis, they will revert to it. They will revert to anything. They may not consciously do it, but I'll tell you, like when I get really, really scared, I'm like, oh my God. And I think of like this Bible verse that I learned when I was like 10 years old. Yeah. And it comes back to me.
And I have a lot of friends and family like that, but as someone who is 100% zero religious, I don't do that at a time of crisis. So I have to figure out where to get that from when I think of a character. But it's interesting. I get the idea that it's how they define right and wrong, kind of the and
it doesn't have to be religious or political, because I know a lot of people who weren't raised religious or political, but they know right and wrong. They have a clear definition of what that is, and they will do whatever it takes to make sure that they are standing up for that in their day-to-day life.
Sure.
And so if you've got that background of your character developed, you know how they're going to act if they're presented with an injustice or a perceived injustice.
Sure. A couple other things. I don't want to tie up the whole meeting, but one of the things you said was the character's ultimate goal. And I start thinking, when I read like the dramatic curve, which I love that I'm sort of learning about the different story types. That's one story type. There's a bunch of them. And I guess they all sort of have in common, what is the motivation, ultimate goal? Is that always a necessity? I guess I ask that because sometimes I feel like my characters don't necessarily even know they're experiencing something weird in their lives that's happening. They don't know what their goal is. They're more, I write in first person perspective, but the reader is more experiencing this phenomenon of some kind.
Yeah.
And it's less about what the character wants as much as what they're experiencing and what to do. But
you get a more satisfying ending and a more compelling character if you tie that into their internal arc. So whatever events you're having, if that can mirror or mimic or just complement the phenomena, then it's going to be a stronger and more memorable story and character.
Is this more specific to a certain genre? Because in many of the books I like, maybe the main character dies. And it's a horrible ending.
Yeah. But did they die after they accomplished their goal?
Well, sometimes their goal I guess if it is a goal, was more of, like, I think about a story where maybe the main character discovers they're not even really a person or something like that.
Like The Sixth Sense?
Yeah, maybe that. Maybe that's a pretty interesting example.
Or like Fight Club. Right?
Both, really. Fight Club is probably my favorite story of all time, my favorite author, but his characters are...
But his goal in Fight Club was to buck the system when he realized that he was a pawn in the system, and that's what he did in the end. So he had, you know what I mean?
He was losing his mind. That was the main...
Tyler was just, I thought he found his mind. Tyler, he wasn't really thinking for himself. He was just going through the randomness of life, you know what I mean, and just doing the same thing over and over again. But he found Tyler was like his Jiminy Cricket.
Sure, but he was completely unaware of a second personality that he had. That was the part I felt like was interesting. But, you know, when you end up at the end of a story, like shooting yourself in the face as he does, I guess I kind of get maybe his ultimate goal was to be free of his boring life.
No, it was just to be free. It was to be free of people telling him what to do, and that included himself. That included that Tyler voice. It was just to be free. And then he set the whole world free. And like Kerry was saying, the mirror image comes in where he set the world free, and that set him free. And it kind of mirrored.
I see.
You know what I mean? That's what you're saying, right, Kerry?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
I like it. I think I took the ultimate goal statement as I know what I want and I'm after it. And I think in some stories like that, it's a good way to put it, Jaimie, is maybe the character doesn't really know what their ultimate goal is, but as long as you know, even if they don't even discover it until 3/4 of the way through the book, you always knew.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay.
In the Hunger Games, Katniss's goal was to save her sister's life. Harry Potter wanted a family. These are very simple goals that readers can connect to.
Those are easier to me to outline. I think some of the heady stories I like Fight Club or whatever, is where it gets tricky. But I think knowing as the writer, knowing their goal, even if they don't even know they have a goal, is key. So that helps.
It is. Yeah, and the whole goal motivation conflict thing, it really helps drive the story. So when they have a goal, they're motivated by that goal, whether they can even articulate that goal or not. And a lot of times, there's two goals. There's the internal goal, Harry Potter wants a family, but his goal in that first book is to get to Hogwarts and to learn how to become a wizard. So, but doing that, Hogwarts eventually becomes his family, and then he marries into the Weasleys, and he gets his family, and he's become a wizard. So every book has its own goal, but the overarch to the story is he just wanted to be loved and be part of a family, because he was not getting that from the Dursleys. So it's just, that's what the readers connect with, because everybody wants to be loved, and that theme that can work in any genre. And that's what ties you to characters, because you can relate to them,
Oh, I think that's so great how you just said that. That's kind of what ties everything together, isn't it? I'm writing this down. And the very last question I have right now is really, you said events contributing to misbelief. I don't think I understand what that means.
Okay, so that is like when it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like it can lead to self-destruction kind of stuff, because say someone tells you you're worthless, and then you interview for months but don't get a job. You're like, that's just reinforcing your belief that you're worthless. Or you finally do get a job, but then you're not being treated fairly. Or
so would it be fair to say the characters, if the character has self-doubt, which I guess everybody has, the events contributing to misbelief really just means, where did it come from? Maybe, is that what it is?
Yeah, and it keeps popping up. So
like a reoccurring doubt.
Yes. Yep. And as soon as they feel like they've made some growth, something happens, or someone says something to them, and it sets them back. And then now they've got to go forward. And that's that.
Like when they tell Marty McFly, like when Marty McFly reacts to being called a chicken.
Yes. Yes. So at some point, that first chicken, that first time, it wounded him so badly. Whenever he hears that word, he reacts and he just snaps. It's hard to come back from that. But eventually, he's not going to care, because he's going to be so awesome that, being called a chicken isn't going to affect him. And that's the satisfying ending of that character arc, when it doesn't bother him, when he can stand up to the bully, and just, not get over it, but get past it, because you don't want getting over things. I don't think we ever get over things, but we can move past them, because to get over it, we have to, we have to somehow say that it didn't happen, but it did, and it shaped us. So
I get it. I feel like it's almost like acceptance versus getting rid of that personality trait. You kind of accept it's part of your personality trait and learn how to handle it properly, rather than letting it handle you.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Awesome. I love it. Thanks for answering those questions for me.
You're welcome. Anyone else have any more questions before we move forward? If you do speak, because I can't see everybody. So, all right, I'm going to go into the 15 essential questions. This is the list I compiled over 3 years and dozens of workshops. So here they are. Who is your character in a foundational way? What's their essence? Okay, so what are they projecting to the world? All right, but what are they projecting on the inside and also the outside? Because a lot of people who are hurt present themselves perfect. They are perfect. They are Stepford perfect. You know, they got their stuff together, but on the inside, they are falling apart, and the outside is just a mask for the mess that's on the inside. What does your character fear most? Okay, here are some common ones. The existential fears. It could be existential fear of failure, abandonment, capable of loving or being loved. In a romance, a lot of characters feel like they are not capable of being loved for whatever reason, but what caused them to feel that way? And that's when you get into the wound that leads to the misbelief. What is your character obsessed with? Okay, what is something that they just can't ignore when they see it or hear it? An obsession. You know, it could be as simple as they love Disney, and that can become their quirk. Everything is Disney related. They quote Disney movies, quote Disney songs. Be careful about quoting in your books because you're not allowed to do that. But if they're always coming up with something like that, that their obsession can turn into a quirk, or it can turn into something that is, a bad quality too. You know, if they're obsessed with winning a game, and then they can get pretty desperate, and they can have gambling problems or violence or that kind of thing. When does or did your character feel completely loved and accepted? And who were they with? Who accepts them completely or did? How does your character's past affect him or her at the start of the story? So at the start of the story, you want the readers to meet your character as they are now, and then they will change throughout the story. If your character could change one thing about the past, what would it be? Maybe, so my character Shelby, she was wearing headphones and didn't hear the drunk driver racing down the street. And when her dog ran into the street and her mom went after it, her mom got hit by a car and killed. So if she hadn't been wearing those headphones, would she have heard it? Would she have been able to warn her mother? Would she have been able to pull her mother back? She had no idea. And so she does not wear headphones ever, because she doesn't ever want to be caught unaware like that again. What is your character's biggest regret? What would mentally or emotionally destroy your character? Biggest secret. What would happen if the biggest secret is revealed? So now this is the kind of stuff that makes for a very satisfying book, character, and ending. If you know their biggest fear and their biggest secret, you can bring that to light in the book and have them and show how they come back from it, or show the readers how they use it in a positive way. Because we have all had those moments that are just so awful, humiliating, bad, or we've hit reply all instead of reply to an email, or said something we shouldn't in front of somebody who we didn't know was there. And so showing how the characters come back for that really relates to a reader. Who would your character die for? That's a huge one. What would cause your character to speak out or defend someone in public? Especially characters who do not like confrontation, who are afraid of confrontation. What's going to cause them to act? What's your character's defining strength? What above everything else is their strength that is going to carry them through this book? Baseline at the beginning of the story, that goes to like their normal. How do you want the character to grow? What must they learn by the end of the book in order to become a more evolved version of themselves? And what is one verb you would use to describe your characters? So this is very interesting, because this helps drive, like we all have adjectives and descriptors that describe our characters, but if there's a verb that describes them, like energetic, we apply that and we can think that in the back of our head, and we know that no matter what this character does throughout the story, they're going to be energetic. Okay, and that's just one example. So just those are those questions that I find the most helpful. Like I said, you can Google lists of interview questions for your characters and pick out the ones that work best for you and your genre or your characters. But for me, these are the ones that I must answer before I start writing. Any questions about the questions? All right. So we're going to get into the goal, motivation, and conflict right now, and I think this will help answer your questions a little bit better, Dan. So here's the bones. Here is the major dramatic curve. This is Jenny Jarvis has a book that explains this. I have it. It's great. It's just that crisis point. You know, we're not used to seeing that crisis point in our story triangle. Like Freitag, he just does the up and down. The hero's journey is circular. This is what I connect to, because I know if I come up with a compelling crisis point, it's going to lead straight to that climax, and then the rest of the book is easy. Well, not easy, but I know where it's going from there. And so the crisis point has to be tied in to all that inner stuff with the characters. Okay, that they're going to have to make a decision there that is going to be, they're going to be afraid to make that decision, or they know once they make their decision, there's no turning back. All right, and here's that third rail. So Lisa Cron is the author of Story Genius, and this is what she talks about. What drives a story forward is, at first blush, invisible. It's not talent, it's not voice, it's not the plot. Think electricity. The same way even the most powerful lamp is used until it's plugged in, a story can't engage readers without the electricity that illuminates the plot, the voice, the talent, bringing them to life.
And so Kerry, what was the last book you said, and the author?
Jenny Jarvis, The Major Dramatic Curve.
Jenny's in Orlando, isn't she? She's like
she's an instructor at Wholesale
teacher. Okay.
Yep.
I've read one of her books. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got her name. I'm sorry. What was the name of the book?
The Major Dramatic Curve, I think.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll look it up. Thank you.
You'll find it. And another one you want to know is The Story Equation. I don't know who the author is. I can't remember. Okay. But that's something, but that breaks down it even further, just as like a checklist. So you have the life of your character, the inciting incident, the disappointments, and then that fork in the road. And then it talks about the overhaul, the perfect ending, and it goes into detail about, it's just another way to structure it, but it's a way to make sure that the character's internal arc is relating to the plot. It's genius. It's called The Story Equation. So those three are my big ones for crafting a story. All right, so goals, you want internal and external goals. And like I said, your character may not even know the internal goal. But they must be strong enough to make the reader care. Go deep. What made the bully mean? We can hate the bully, but what made the bully mean? Why won't mom let the kids swim in the ocean? Well, maybe one of her friends was bitten and killed by a shark, you know? And these are secondary characters, but they affect the main character. And so if the story is about mom and her fears of the ocean, then you really need to go even deeper. But these are questions you want to ask, like, you know, just with your main character, like why? Just continue to ask why. The internal goal and internal motivation inform the way your characters act and react in the story, and they aren't always revealed right away. You kind of want to tease this out. If your character has a pattern of acting in a certain way, at some point the reader wants to figure out why they act and react that way. But you know that because you know everything about them. You know about that black moment in their, you know, prior to the story that causes them to act a certain way. The external goal and motivation needs to be strong enough to carry the reader through. Okay, this is your plot-driven kind of stuff. So if you're waiting to dramatically reveal the internal goal and motivation, you must provide hints, clues, foreshadowing along the way, as in The Sixth Sense. Angelique said something to me this morning, which really just was like, boom. If your character knows it, your reader should know it. So if it's something that the character knows, the reader needs to know that too. If the character doesn't know it, it's fine. Know that it's fine to keep it as a secret, because you do want the plot twist, and you do want the character to come up against those things that are going to surprise them, and then they have to act and react accordingly. But don't hide secrets from the reader that the character knows. Okay, don't allude to it, because it frustrates the reader. It really, really does.
That's why we follow Watson and not Sherlock Holmes, by the way. Because if we were in Sherlock Holmes's mind, we would know the end by chapter 3. Book would be over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's how you can get around that too. If you're not, if you need to keep stuff secret from the reader, then
Yes.
maybe you're following the wrong person, right?
Yeah, and the dueling POVs are awesome. And I write that way. I write two different characters and what they know and about each other, and it's kind of fun to do it that way. Does it work for every story? Maybe Sixth Sense. I mean, I had no idea when I got to the end there. I was like, what is this guy's, like, I didn't get it. And then when I figured it out just before it was revealed. I was like, oh my God, the clues are everywhere.
And I figured it, in all honesty, and I don't always do this, but I figured it out in the first 10 minutes. So I think that's the type of, maybe sometimes it's the types of stories that you're more obsessed with, because those are my favorite kinds of stories.
I know who the bad person is, and like every Chicago PD, Chicago Fire. I can usually figure out how it's going to end, because I've seen so many episodes. Law and Order SVU. I know I probably know pretty much how every episode is going to end, but I still enjoy watching them because I'm connected to the characters. I want to know now if Amanda and Carisi are going to get together. I want to know that because I've been watching them for years now. And now that he's like working for the DA and they're not partners anymore, like how's that going to work? And anyway, I'm invested in the characters because I know a lot about them.
And those are, I think, those kinds of stories have more complex connections between characters than some other types of stories like Fight Club, or where a big part of the story isn't really a connection between characters as much as it is the main character's connection with themselves.
Right. Yep. You've got your man versus man, man versus the world, those kind of conflicts, and that all plays in. And like I said, every story is different, but the more you know about the character, the more you can develop that character and their internal self. The more and if you can get that on the page, that's the trick, is getting it on the page in the right place, in the right dose, and at the right time of the story. It's super.
Well, when you said hero's journey, I went and Googled that real fast, because as a relatively new author, I've only been doing this for about 5 years, but it's interesting how there's totally different story structures. Yeah. And I guess we've been watching or reading them our whole lives without knowing that they're out there.
Our brain is programmed for story. So when we read a story and we're like, there's something just not right with this, it's because it's not hitting those expected marks that our brain has been trained.
Yeah.
Especially Disney has, it's formulaic, but when you do a great job of it, it doesn't feel formulaic. So there's a great class that I think it's Khan Academy that does it. It's Pixar through Khan Academy maybe. It's a Pixar story writing class, and it's wonderful, and it breaks apart Finding Nemo, and it breaks it down to its essential elements, and it's wonderful. They give examples and practice stuff. I'm pretty sure it's Khan Academy that does it. I'll find that after the workshop and drop the link.
Okay, well, I won't take up too much time here, but I've always been fascinated by stories like, have any of you ever seen or read Mist, The Mist from Stephen King? I'm going to ruin the ending, but at the very end of the whole story, the main character is in a truck with this woman and his son, and these big, huge creatures are everywhere, and they run out of gas, and it's hopeless. There's no way they're going to get out of it. It's big alien creatures. So, essentially what happens is he looks in his gun. He's got 2 bullets left. He shoots the girl to save her from having to be eaten by these things. He shoots his son. He gets out of the truck and walks into the mist to be eaten by these creatures, and the military comes in and cleans the whole thing up. And he's still alive. And I love it. It is, but it is
tragic.
It is tragic, right? And so that I strive to come up with that kind of ending for my stories, and it's hard. It's hard to find the right beat for those, because it's almost like making a character that nobody likes. There's a balance between readers hating the book because that's an ending that is just so tragic, versus a happy ending. And that's why I mentioned the different genres, because sometimes I think certain genres expect certain endings.
Yeah, they do. You know what? That reminded me of El Camino. Have you seen that? With
I don't think so.
Oh my God.
No, but I am writing it down.
Write it down, because it is so
That's a tragic
ending. Done. It is a tragic ending, but I loved that one.
But it had to be that way.
I'm going to try.
It had to be that way.
It did have to be that way, and it was It's like, when Snape kills Dumbledore, you're like, that is just awful. But when you find out the backstory of why he did it, it had to be that way.
Yeah.
And so I love that.
You guys had me really wanting to watch the Harry Potter movies. I think what happened to me is you said the books too, but I watched the first 2 movies and then I saw like the 4th one on an airplane and it screwed up the whole linear thing for me. I need to go back.
The first 3 are building the backstory to get to the 4th book is really where it starts to take off. The first 3 are like kids' books. It was tough for me to get through them. But when I started reading 4, I couldn't put the rest of the series down.
Oh, I have to go back and read them because I love her whole story, her style, I showed you guys the way she wrote her story and put it together, and I love the whole thing.
Yeah, it's really clever.
Carrie,
yes.
One question that I have is that's like telling about the characters and whatnot and like sprinkling it throughout the story. That's one thing that I've had trouble with, is like trying to figure out how to do it in a like not a word vomit way.
Yes.
So what would you suggest?
So what I do now is, I did a lot of that at the beginning, and my editors would be like, backstory dump, cut this. I'm like, I can't. The reader needs to know all this stuff. So if you can recognize it or somebody else points it out to you, cut it out of your document and put it in a separate document, and then just list it out by bullet points. And then look for places in the story where those bullet points will make sense. So for example, in one of the books, we're talking about Steve, and Steve is the former police chief. And so when I introduced him, I said the former police chief who was at the scene of Shelby's mother's accident, and I kind of went on about his connection to Shelby. Whereas I should have just said the former police chief, because the reader's going to start thinking, oh, if he's the former police chief, was he there to work that accident? And then later in the story, when he's talking to Damon, who Shelby and Damon are getting together, Steve then tells him through dialogue the backstory of that accident and says, and it gives a great opportunity to drop that backstory when the reader is ready for it, because now we're like, what happened with Shelby's mother? Like, when did she die? How did she die? All this stuff. Shelby can't talk about it to him because she's still so emotional about it, but Steve can. But if I had said that at the beginning of the book when we first met him, it would not have been as effective.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's very, very tricky to learn that. And but if you can identify, like, I still do it. Like, it's still so easy for me to type all this stuff out. But what it does is it takes the reader out of the story. And then when you get to a point when it would make better sense to use it, the reader doesn't always remember what you've said. And so they're like, wait, what? And so that's where beta readers come in really handy, because they're able to, if you ask them, where did you get lost? Where did you feel like, it slowed down? They can't always explain why they put a book down or it slowed down, but they can tell you where it didn't quite feel right. And so getting that feedback has been really helpful for me.
Okay.
So, all right, so the conflict, let's go back to the conflict real quick. Conflict keeps your story moving. If you get writer's block, if you're stuck, go back to your list about your character and find and throw conflict at them. So, but it has to make sense for the character and the story. So, you can torture them internally, externally. Someone can say something to them that triggers their wound, or they could fall down a ladder and break their arm. But if they've got this event coming up where they need the use of their arm, what are they going to do now? So just torture them a bit, and your story will naturally find a way to move on.
Hey, Carrie, I actually got to get going.
Oh, thanks for coming. What time is it? Oh my gosh, I've been talking a long time. All right, I'm going to try to get through this. If you want the slides, just send me an email, okay?
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye. Awesome. See you later.
Bye.
All right. So this would be, we're running over time. But if you think of a character, any character you've made, or Harry Potter character or a Fight Club character, take a minute and write out what you think their character's internal and external goal, motivation, conflict is. And we've already talked about this, so I'm not gonna make you do it, but it's a good exercise to practice it if you wanna do that. And here's the framework that I use. So you may wanna screenshot this real quick. I mean, you'll get the slides, but if you can fill this out, this is gonna help you write your story. Does anyone have any questions about it?
I'm
I
just
really like
stealing
it
it
because
and
it's
putting it in a
simple.
Word doc.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's pretty simple, but it reminds me when I get stuck of why I'm writing the story. This also really helps with the blurb when you're writing the blurb. All right, so let's get into Harry Potter a little bit. Harry's parents are murdered, and the Dursleys are terrible to him. They show him no love, and the reader immediately becomes sympathetic to this life he's lived for 11 years. We all feel awful for the boy who in the closet. He's excited when the letters from Hogwarts come. This is the escape he's waited his whole life for, right? He's like, I'm finally getting out of this place. But it isn't until later in the story when he sees his parents in the mirror of Erised that we know that's what he wants for sure. That is his heart's desire. He wants his parents. He wants a family. And that, in the very first book, sets us up for his goal for the whole series. Throughout the series, Voldemort's actions threaten the closure of Hogwarts. That is his external conflict. He cannot allow Hogwarts to close. He must do anything possible he can, because if Hogwarts closes, he is going to lose his family. That is his family, his home. He says it over and over again, Hogwarts is our home. It may not be everybody else's home, but that has become home to him, and the people inside of it, his family. So Harry is motivated to solve all these mysteries and that try to stop him. It isn't until the very end the reader learns that it can only be him who can defeat Voldemort, and his actions at the end mirror his mother's at the beginning. You know, when his mother jumps in the way to save him, that's exactly what he does to save the world from Voldemort. He goes willingly as a sacrifice, and that brings the story full circle. So that's that mirror ending I was talking about earlier. It's brilliant, brilliant. And so it's a very good example. And there are books that talk about deconstructing the Harry Potter novels and the movies and all that stuff. And that has been a great way for me to learn about deconstructing stories, which actually then helped me write them, craft them more intentionally. All right, so here, if I do Harry in that grid, that template. Harry wants to gain a family and be loved and defeat Voldemort because Voldemort is a threat to Harry's pseudo-family, and Harry must save the world from evil. Okay? But Harry struggles with self-confidence. I'm going to move the video. And resentment. And every year, Voldemort tries a new way to kill Harry and take over the world. So if you have that framework as you are writing the series, it kind of, you know, it keeps you on task. All right, here's Katniss. I love Katniss. Katniss's biggest fear is that her sister will die. Because of who she is, she volunteers to take her place. So what kind of character does it take to take somebody else's place at this kind of event? Then here's something that triggers her wound. Rue. Rue reminds her of Prim because Rue is 12 years old. And she sees her sister in Rue. She does everything she can to keep Rue alive. And guess what? She can't. And that is when something in her mind flips. That's her crisis point, and that is when the game changes. Now, she doesn't want to just survive this. She wants to get back at the game makers. She wants to get back at President Snow. So when she's holding those berries in her hand at the end, she is in total control. And that is her goal. She wants to be in control. No one's going to tell her what to do. No one's going to tell, you know, she knows this is wrong. And so over the books, spoiler alert, when she's confronted with her initial fear and something actually happens to Prim, which is what she has been trying to prevent the entire time, something flips again, and that's when she goes after President Coin instead of President Snow, because Coin becomes the real threat. And so knowing Katniss, we can take this character, put her in any world, in any story, anywhere, any timeline. We know how she's going to act and react to certain things because her character is so fully developed. So when characters drive the plot, you connect more, and it makes them memorable. Harry could only have his happy ending when he sacrificed everything he had for the people he loved. And despite J.K. Rowling and fans wanting him to end up with Hermione, the way his character was written, he could only have ended up with Ginny because loving and marrying her gave him the loving family he desired beyond Hogwarts. In Die Hard, only John McClane had the motivation to save the day. Though he was separated from his wife, he still loved her, and she was his children's mother. That's his motivation. All right, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Edmund Pevensey had to feel unloved and left out to let the White Witch charm him, which set into motion the chain of events leading to the Battle of Narnia. Okay, and Shirley had to leave her beloved Green Gables to discover who she really was and fulfill her destiny. And even the oldest story of time, Jesus had to be betrayed by Judas to set into motion the prophecy that he would sacrifice himself in perfect love for all mankind. Are you seeing a theme? The way you create your characters dictates how you will strip them down, back them into a corner, take away what they love most, and sacrifice something, often themselves, and then make them overcome it to lead them to their often happy ending. Sometimes not happy ending, depends what genre you write, but satisfying ending for the reader is ultimately your goal. All right, I got some quotes here from some of my favorite authors. I love this quote from Valerie. Developing a story is only half the battle. Character development isn't just the art of naming and describing a character, but it dives deeper. This covers the overall design of the character physically, mentally, and emotionally. Proper development should show reaction, change, and growth in more than one way. At the same time, a character is expected to be consistent, but not always predictable. Development should not stop with the main character or characters, but extend into secondary characters and tertiary characters. A cast of well-developed characters can help a writer move their plot, as well as make their story more immersive by pulling the reader into the plot in a more intimate manner. So I thought that was brilliant. And if you look at that link down below, she's got a whole slideshow that goes into this. All right, secondary characters. Here they are. Snape, Rue, Gilbert Blythe. I love him. Oh, Mr. Tumnus and Rafiki, and there's your favorite detective. Isn't he cute? Cute. And and what's her name from Pride and Prejudice? The youngest sister. Oh, she's such a Anyway, but she's important, right? Can you imagine that story without her? You can't, because she drives stuff, and she's the opposite, or she's a contrast, to the main characters. All right, so secondary characters are your helpers, your troublemakers, your BFFs, your mentors, etc. They must serve a purpose. For every who, there must be a why. They support and help develop the main character. They mirror the main character. They reveal information or provide info about the main character, and they provide conflict to advance the plot. They can do some of these things or all of these things, but they have to do something. All right, give secondary characters a backstory and use what is relevant. All right, these are two of my favorites. Okay, Scarlett and Melanie. If you have not seen Gone with the Wind, you need to. They are complete opposites. Okay, this is what Scarlett thinks of Melanie. She hates her. Why does she hate her? Because she's boring. And she's so boring, but she ends up marrying the person that Scarlett has set her sights on her entire life. Scarlett wants to marry Ashley Wilkes, but who gets to? Melanie. That is like such salt in the wound, because not only is Melanie boring, Scarlett doesn't like her. And it becomes her goal of the whole movie to prove that she's better than Melanie Wilkes. All right. So Scarlett is interesting because she's flawed, she's selfish, she's self-preserving, highly motivated, strong. She thinks she knows what she wants and is driven to get it at any cost. I mean, she even marries her sister's fiance because she's like, I am gonna, she is not very likable. She has a lot of room to grow. There are moments where we see her vulnerability, like when she throws the vase or whatever it is, and and when she's mad, and Rhett Butler gets up from the couch and he's like, what's wrong with you? And she doesn't know what to say, but she's a great character to illustrate this kind of thing. The protagonist should always fight harder than anyone else. Okay, anyone else. So help me God, I will never go hungry again. She's going to do everything she can to take care of her family, even if it means marrying her sister's fiance, because she's not going to be starving. So Melanie is the contrast is night and day. She's the opposite. Okay, but through her and through their weird friendship, we learn more about Scarlett. Melanie is full of grace. She has no idea Scarlett hates her. But when she dies, Scarlett's priorities change. Ashley Wilkes comes up to her and says, oh, hey, Scarlett, Melanie died. So now, if you want to be my wife. And Scarlett's like, what the heck? She's like, I don't want you. And then she realizes she's never really wanted him. He's not right for her. And so, but that was her driving force. She has changed completely. And in that moment, we learn how much she's changed. And this is what the author says. What makes people able to come through catastrophes and others apparently just as able, strong and brave, go under. It happens in every upheaval. I only know that the survivors used to call that quality gumption. So I wrote about the people who had gumption and the people who did not. You want your main characters to have that gumption. All right. Another one of my favorite authors. Kat Mazera is a pantser. When she starts, she knows very little about her characters, but as she writes, she develops them completely. So she doesn't aim to create memorable or individual characters. It just happens because she rounds them out so well. And it's based on the relationship. So a lot of her secondary characters come into play, and they then show up in other books, and we learn more about them. But by the time we get to their book, we know a lot about them, and we want to know their story. It's genius. So, and the readers expect that. And so, you know, she's got hundreds, probably thousands of one-click readers, and she's got a new book out every month. And, you know, as soon as the pre-order is up, I'm like, click, because I want to know what's happening in her world. It's because of the characters. All right, your tertiary characters. These are in the background. They serve a brief role or purpose. They may be used by main characters to reflect. They may be recurring. They may provide a new conflict or clue. They may be promoted to a secondary or primary character in a series. Be sure to catalog them in your series Bible. Readers will remember their eye color, older and younger siblings, etc. If you have a reader who loves your books in your series, they're going to remember everything more than you will. I guarantee it. All right, so Robin Hood approaches a tertiary character, a small boy who is shooting arrows at a target. Robin Hood, who's the main character, asks if the boy can shoot just as well while distracted. After failing, Lady Marian, secondary character, poses the question as if he's able to do so himself. The nice thing this does is imply that Robin is no different from a young boy through the interaction and failing of the third character while being guided and pushed by a secondary character's perspective or influence. It is something you will see in great writing often when your main characters find themselves observing a rounded tertiary character and using it to reflect thoughts, feelings, and more. So they can be put in there as a device, you know, just to solve a problem that you're having or to illustrate a character. So if you watch Outlander, I forget his name, the Englishman who Jaimie saves him in the battle, and he's just a kid, or he brings him anyway. He saves his life, and then later when Jaimie is going to be executed, this boy's brother saves his life, and then what's his name? Then he later becomes the governor of Jamaica, and now he's anyway. I forget the character's name, but he was a tertiary character that became a secondary character. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm sorry. I have not watched enough Outlander to be able to articulate that, but that popped into my head. So if you've watched Outlander, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Anyway, all right, more tools. This series here is amazing. All right, and they have an online version that you can buy for, you know, $8 to $10 a month, I think, if you don't like books. 2 to 3 key moments that shape the character, know what they are. Diary entries can help. You know, if you write as if you are the character, you can write that down. Like I journaled as Shelby the day her mother died, and that helped me write a really compelling scene. And then the journal entry was so good. My beta readers, I read it to some of my beta readers, and they're like, you have to put that in the book. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna put the whole thing, but I put part of it in there, and it really identified the readers. All right, journaling at the time of the wound, that kind of thing. Interview, ask your characters. We talked about that, and craft books. And here are some great craft books. All right, let's review. Primary characters. I'm just gonna go through these because it's already 12:19. This is all in your slide. All right. I love this because we all have that shelf where we put our favorite books, right? Whether it's an actual literal thing or a figurative thing, we all have that keeper shelf. Okay, I call it my favorite shelf. But on that shelf are the characters we want to read and revisit with again and again. I will go back, and I know a lot of readers are like this. It may be genre specific too, but I will go back and read my favorite parts of my favorite books often. And I want people to do that with my books. So I need to give them a reason to do that. All right. If you're in Orange County or anywhere in Florida, anywhere in the world right now, you can take classes with the OCLS Writers Corner. And here's the link. There's a class today at 2 o'clock on action, adding oomph to your action scenes with Laura Perez. You do not need a library card to attend. They have some great workshops. Writers Atelier, also if you're local. Right Gym program available to anyone in the country. There are several of us right now who are members of that program. It's $15 a month, and it is just a really great accountability community, and it's small. I think there's less than 30 people in it, so you can really get some one-on-one with an editor and with each other and stuff. Okay,
I adore it. I'm also the administrative assistant for WA though, so I maybe don't count, but I love the Right Gym. Sorry, I had to speak up because I always
talk about it for a second.
Talk about it for a second. Okay, cool.
Tell them why they need it.
Okay, so you need it because they it is genuinely a place where you can post about what your the main thing that I use it for actually is there are posts, I believe on the Monday and I believe on like the Saturday or on the weekend or something like that. And you you announce to the group your goals, and then people will comment on them. People will, if you're stuck with something, people will try to help you, etc. And then at the end of the week, there is a check-in, and you will tell people how you did with your goals. And if you did not meet them, it's kind of like a little bit of pressure to, meet those goals. And you kind of may feel a need to explain yourself if you didn't, because you've made a pact with the community to take that on. What else? We also have, I'm sorry.
There's a free video every month.
Yeah, videos. We have free worksheets when you join, I believe. And lots of other, okay, good, thank you, because I'm bad at speaking off the top of my head. Just nothing but good stuff in there. And it's a really wonderful, positive community. It's genuinely about building each other up. And I really love that about Writers Atelier and especially the Right Gym. It's pretty darn valuable.
Yeah, it's really kept me on schedule for the past couple years. Start writing in the village will appear. This is my village right here, and it has expanded since I made this PowerPoint over a year ago. Yeah, see the right angle is there. Jaimie's been with me since my first book, and I'm so grateful, so grateful. There we go. Any more Q&A? Oh my gosh, it's almost 12:30.
This was great.
I got time
ferocious notes.
Awesome.
Yeah, nah.
Oh,
I don't have any questions, but I just took ferocious notes, and I'm going to have to probably rewatch the slides a couple times. It was great.
Same here. Yep.
Awesome.
Amazing. Same. 20 pages of notes and screenshots and stuff. This is great.
Yeah, lots of screenshots.
Awesome. Yay. I love teaching about characters. I know this was long, but I thought everything in there was necessary and relevant.
It's perfect. Yeah.
If you think of ways I can cut it, I'd love to shorten it for a shorter time period so that I can present it in more places. But really, it's meant to be about an hour.
If you want to cut it, I would split it into two things, and I would stop at your 15 essential questions part. And I would make it two different presentations. I think it was great, but if you're looking for ways to get it into more places, then do that, and then say, hey, I've got this handout on 15 essential questions. You can get it for free if you'd like to take that class, and then you can upsell to the next one.
That's a great idea. Awesome. Well, yay. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. I think Jaimie's right. I think you could take each half of it and make it an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
And Kerry, I don't have a question, but just a comment kind of carrying over from our earlier conversation where we were talking about plotting a series. And my only comment is the way you described Harry Potter and the arch of the overall series and then each book, you clearly understand how to plot a series. And so when you said you needed help with that, and I'm like, really? You do?
Well, when I started writing my series, I didn't write the first book with a series in mind. And so I think I'm not really sure where to go from there. I have 7 different books that I'm going to write, but they're not very tied together. What, Megan?
I said that is an underestimation. I do not think you have 7. I think you have 30. But, that's just me, because,
Yeah, my characters are just, they're doing their own thing in short stories and other people's novels. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. And so this Meemaw character in particular is everywhere. And that was accidental.
Hey, Kerry, can you pop your slides off so we can see faces? Thank you, love.
Yep.
There's a pretty face.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
All right. So I don't. Do you want to stop the recording? Do we want to chat more? Anybody have more questions?
Yeah. I think questions are good at the end, and people can always dip out of the recording if they're done.
Okay.
Yeah, this was great. I don't have any questions. I just have I just want to go back to the beginning and rewatch it a couple times.
Yeah, this is great for me too. I think, hopefully we all feel this way. I don't want to sound arrogant, but I think my stories are, the 2 books I've written so far, I feel like the stories are really good stories. I think that my stories will really benefit moving forward from more character development, because I'm all about what happens next. And I think building more connections and more characters, I get feedback from my audience that they felt so connected to a character more than I ever did writing it. And I think if I can work on a lot of what you've said here to build my own connections to the characters, it will only serve the story and the reader better.
Yeah, it will definitely strengthen it. But yeah, I mean, if you, a lot of books and stories are plot driven, and they're great stories. They're exciting and they're memorable. But when you can tie emotionally to your reader, they'll connect with it like even on a deeper level, and that's what I strive to do.
Yeah, and I think mine are plot driven for sure.
Yeah,
mine are plot driven, but I think Jaimie referred to Fight Club, which I think she knows it's one of my favorites, but it's plot driven. I don't know if there's a huge amount of character development. I never really felt like there was, especially as it relates to the details that you're going into.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can still play with that line, and maybe even for my genre, which is like a thriller, supernatural kind of thing, I guess, sometimes maybe science fiction-y a little, but I think without overdoing it, I think there's a way I could develop more connections and more purposely develop what their motivations and things are. So this is very helpful for me.
Oh, yay. Awesome. Yay.
Well, Kerry, thank you so much for all the time you put into building this. I know it wasn't just for us, but we gratefully benefited from it. And
anytime.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I don't know who's on next week. I feel like it's Steve, but I'll figure that out and post something.
I think it's Megan. I think next week is Megan.
Is it Megan?
Oh,
okay.
And Angelique has an awesome passive voice thing where she helps you identify words that are like that and fix it, because like she's got a whole list of words, and
awesome.
It's like, oh my God, I need to search these and find these in my books and write them a different way. And so if you're sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. But no, I was also going to mention to you, Kerry, but since we're here, I actually have because I'm a huge plotter, and I'm definitely a plot-driven writer who has really struggled with bringing in more of the character development. But I have a presentation that I've given in the past on plotting with purpose and
awesome
what to do, and kind of ensuring that the story that you're telling is both plot and character driven, because a great story is both. It's not just one or the other. It's both of those.
Right.
All right. Well, happy to give that presentation. At some point.
Yes,
we'll look at the calendar. That'd be great. We'll get you on the calendar for sure, Angelique.
I'm not next week. I am the 23rd.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I think it's Steve then next week. I'll confirm with him. If not, it might be you. Angelique, we might bring you in next week. I'll confirm with Steve. No, you're good.
Yeah,
it's already been done. You already have it.
The presentation's ready. I've given it already, so it'd be easy to throw in there. And
I would love that, because I need help. I need to strengthen my plot stuff, because I have all these scenes with the characters, these vignettes of like they're but I'm like, all right, what happens next? Like,
no, my plot is done before I write. My characters, they get developed as I'm writing. So there's that.
Yeah. See, that's exactly how I write. So I want to see your presentation.
I fill those worksheets in after the fact when I'm doing revisions typically.
See, that's more my style, Angelique, where I know the whole plot from beginning to end before I know one thing about any character. Yeah. So it's like fill in the blank. So I'd love to see your presentation too.
Okay. Yeah. Those are my stories too. I plot the thing, and then I don't even think really too hard about characters. If they'll show up at the door, and then we'll go from there. If I have problems, we'll just
fix it later. That's what revisions are for.
Yeah, that's what revisions are for. Like, you're gonna
Kerry.
The thing. You might as well.
I'm the opposite. My revisions are all plot-driven revisions because I haven't worked that out.
It's a good balance we have in here.
Yeah.
Complimentary.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, you guys, this was awesome. I'll get this recording on YouTube ASAP and share it.
Awesome.
let you know who's going to be speaking next week, because I have it in my phone, but I'm on my phone. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jaimie. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Jaimie.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Carrie.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Oops, I hit the wrong button.
You
Stop.